Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mama Wears Athleisure. I am your host, Mariela de Santiago, a first-time mom. We focus on all things mom with tips to help make life easier and more organized for all you mamas out there. Hi, everyone. Today, I'm here with Jenn from Tinkler, and we're going to talk a little bit about breastfeeding ergonomics and how to find the best position when it comes to breastfeeding.
Hi, I am Jenn Lormand. I'm a clinical exercise physiologist and a published medical researcher. My business partner and I, Christina Walsh, started our business Tinkler about 4 years ago after both of us sustained issues postnatally. For myself, that included dealing with stage 2 prolapse of bladder, uterus, and bowel, and a whole host of other issues, including diastasis recti. And in my private practice, one of the things that I did with a lot of women is focus on kinesiology and biomechanics, because as an exercise physiologist, that is my jam. And with new moms in particularly, what I began to notice a pattern of was how improper nursing position was contributing to things like, besides back pain, which is kind of obvious, but also pee leaks and prolapse and decreased time healing of their DR. And so I'm excited and really passionate about diving into this topic today because it's a ginger time of life. It's a very vulnerable time, especially if, like myself, maybe you thought you were going to have a vaginal delivery and you ended up having a C-section, or your birth plan didn't go according to how you thought it was going to. And now welcome to breastfeeding and all of the challenges that come with that as you're trying to heal your body from birth. It's a very vulnerable state that we find ourselves in as we are learning how to breastfeed.
Lots of very good points. And you also mentioned so many different topics that I've also had episodes on, which you really don't know or think about or really learn about until you're experiencing them, right?
Yes.
But I would love if you would be able to talk a little bit about what is breastfeeding ergonomics and why is this important for nursing mamas?
Breastfeeding ergonomics is just a fancy word for proper position, right? Most of us might be familiar with this word in regards to workplace ergonomics, right? Because as we spent more time sitting at computers, more folks started getting injuries from improper work ergonomics. And the same thing is true for your nursing position. We spend over 18,000 hours feeding our baby in just the first year. So anything that you're doing for that period of time, the position that you're in really does make a tremendous amount of difference. And so what I want to say first and foremost is, if you are in the beginning stages of nursing and having problems with latching and all of those types of things, I don't want you to stress or hyper focus about your position in that state. Obviously, you need to get with a lactation specialist and focus on the immediate thing, which is actually getting baby good nutrition. So I just have to say that caveat, because I think oftentimes we are so hyper focused on taking care of babies that we lose ourselves. And while this is important for you, obviously feeding baby is number one priority. So give yourself some grace here before you hyper focus on this. Now, if you have been nursing for a couple weeks and you feel like you've gotten some good momentum going, but you're noticing maybe you've got some neck discomfort, some shoulder discomfort, some back discomfort, all of that is pretty typical post-birth, right? Because we're dealing with a weak core, a weak pelvic floor, weak back extensors. And those are our postural muscles that really help us to sit up straight and be able to support us in both a standing and a seated position. So it's going to be important that you give your body a little bit more support during this time. And that's what breastfeeding ergonomics is all about. And I'm excited to share some specific tips for each mom about that.
So I'm sure this probably might be a little bit different for different mamas, depending on like the size of the baby, but would be the best position, or what are some really good positions for nursing?
Yeah, obviously that's super personal. I know a lot of women really enjoy nursing in that football position early on, laying down. If that's the case for you, my suggestion in terms of ergonomics would really be to give your lower back support, make sure that your knees are bent, make sure that you've got a pillow placed underneath your knees. So that's going to help reduce some of the pressure off the backside of your pelvis. That would be my tip for that position. Most women, I know for myself, I nursed 3 babies. I'm a mom of 3, and I nursed all my babies for at least 6 months. And most of the time that I spent nursing was in a seated position. My babies were super big. And so nursing in those carrier things, because of how long they were and how heavy they were, did not work for me. I know a lot of women love doing that, but I'm going to specifically talk about if you are using one of those carriers to nurse, standing and doing other activities, just make sure that you've got good posture, right? That you're not rounding your shoulders forward to help baby get to breast. And we're going to talk about that also in that seated position. So when you are seated nursing, the easiest thing is to try to bring breast to baby, right? Particularly if you've had problems with latching. What we want to do is bring baby up to breast, which I know all the lactation consultants talk about, but oftentimes women actually are not getting baby high enough. So what we recommend is taking a couple of bed pillows, or really firm sofa pillows can be great, and putting that first on your lap and then placing your boppy pillow on top of that, so that baby can lay there comfortably and really get the same height as breast. That's going to be really important for not rounding your shoulders forward. And the reason why you don't want to do that, aside from the strain on your low back, is that when we're talking about decreasing healing for DR, we're also talking about decreasing P leaks or downward pressure. So if you're rounding forward, the connective tissue that holds up your bladder actually slings all the way around your neck. And so if you're rounded forward with that forward head position, it's going to increase P leaks, pressure, and it's going to create more pressure on that DR. And so you really do want to make sure that you're sitting up nice and tall. To support your back, what we recommend is taking a couple of bed pillows and turning those tall ways so that you've got really nice support, since that core is very weak post-birth. Now, in terms of addressing the weak pelvic floor, and oftentimes for most women in the end stages of pregnancy, just because of the biomechanics of the belly being further away from the body, your glutes kick off. And so you have a harder time in those first couple of weeks postpartum of really having good posterior chain support from just a postural perspective. So what we want to do is take like a kiddie stool, or if you don't have an ottoman, and make sure that you've got those feet raised, so downward pressure on the pelvic floor and the pelvic organs.
I love that you made lots of really good points. First, the baby carrier. I always been jealous that people were able to.
Me too.
I think I just have a very short torso, and it just didn't work for me either. So I totally understand. And the boppy pillow, like all of that has been so helpful. And I'm still nursing. My son's almost going to be 16 months. So I still use it now, along with, we have a recliner chair. We went ahead and invested on like a really comfortable chair so that we would both be comfortable, because it is a lot. You're sitting in there a lot and you want to be comfortable.
Yes.
Like I find that if I'm out anywhere, I'm having to kind of hunch or bring my body forward or roll my spine, which is so uncomfortable, even if you're only in that position for a few minutes.
Yeah, and I think the other big culprit of the forward head posture and the rounded shoulders is we tend to multitask while we're nursing. And so there's a lot of scrolling that's happening on our phone, which naturally you're putting the head down, you're rounding forward. A lot of women postpartum deal with wrist pain And that can be avoided by simply, if you have like a loopy case or a pop socket on your phone. I'm not telling you to not scroll, because look, I'm type A. I always try to take advantage of pockets of time where my baby is busy to actually check things off of my list, but making sure that you're bringing phone up to face and that you've got good wrist and hand ergonomics, because after baby, we tend to pat. There's a lot more of flexion, extension, and side to side motion in the wrist that you weren't doing before, which can also exacerbate the joints due to extra relaxin in the system post-pregnancy that takes much longer to get rid of while you're nursing. So it makes the joints a little more loosey-goosey, so to speak. I know you've had several other great guests that have talked about that.
Thank you for that. Since we're talking about worst positions, let's go ahead and just talk about what are the worst positions to be in.
Yes, being in that shoulders rounded forward, having that pull on the low back where your feet and your pelvis are not supported, all of that for prolonged periods of time can really cause not just an increase in P-leaks, slow down the process of healing your abdominal separation if you have one, but it's also leading to shoulder instability, which I can just tell you in my own personal practice, so many women in that first year postpartum that I worked with had rotator cuff injuries, momming injuries, because they were improperly nursing and then they were driving with their baby in the back seat and did the whole reach behind move because to grab a passy or a snack cup or something like that. And all of a sudden, oh goodness, now I've got this rotator cuff injury that had really been building because of the improper positioning and tightness and weakness that was happening in both the shoulder girdle, and same principles apply for pelvic floor. A tight pelvic floor is a weak pelvic floor. So anytime you've got tightness somewhere, it's not good. It can lead to injury, and usually does if you don't fix it.
I feel like you answered my next question about what this does. So you mentioned the rotator cuff. You've already mentioned a number of other issues that can occur, or I don't know if symptoms would be the right word, but
yeah,
basically a lot of what moms may go see a pelvic floor therapist for, right? The DR.
Pelvic floor therapists, chiropractors, massage therapists. A lot of people see a lot of different practitioners for some of these issues. And certainly with that forward head posture, the other symptom that we didn't talk about is that can cause migraines due to the chronic tightness in your traps, your upper back, and your neck. When you're having those shifts in hormones that come postpartum, that can be a perfect recipe for migraines as well. So this really has a tremendous impact on the cascade of symptoms that can be caused by being in that position and you're just not comfortable. Part of nursing is supposed to be to really enjoy that bonding time with your child. And that's definitely difficult when you are in pain and uncomfortable doing that activity.
Yeah, it's such a good point about being comfortable. You're spending, like you said, 1,800 hours, at least that first year or more, right? Especially if you're predominantly or mostly just breastfeeding, not including the pumping. So the comfort piece is super, super important. And yes, having that phone, I have my charger right there because I'm like you, where I need to use every second. I think all moms, right? Here we are, we're Googling something because all of a sudden baby is going through a different milestone and we want to know about it, or we want to see if baby is on track. There's just so much. It's overwhelming.
Yes, very. In so many ways.
And I do want to say, I appreciate that you mentioned that because sometimes I kind of feel guilty in the sense of, am I not giving him enough time, even though he's like occupied? So now I don't feel as bad.
No. Well, and we all know the power of that skin to skin touch and what that in itself is doing for our babies, whether we're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, just having that contact with us is very meaningful to our babies. And we're all trying to do the best that we can. And that our team always said, fed is best, whether that's bottle or breast, because all of us have had different experiences with nursing. And it's definitely a challenge and rewarding and all the things that motherhood is.
Well, my last question, do you have any other tips, suggestions, or recommendations?
I certainly do, because I never like to talk about problems that I don't have a solution to. And so one of the things that we love to offer women is it's a freebie. It's called our 90-90 back and hip decompression technique. And what this really is it acts as like a self-adjustment. If you were to go to the chiropractor, it's a nice gentle adjustment using gravity to help decompress the low back and the hips. And we also walk you through how to properly do diaphragmatic breath work, because again, doing the proper breath work, our diaphragm mirrors our pelvic floor. And so when you've got that rounded forward shoulder position, the front of that diaphragm is super tight, and that can also have a trickle down effect on the pelvic floor. So making sure that you're doing that breath work as well as this 90-90 decompression position is a real game changer for women. And it's something very simple that you can do for 5 to 10 minutes a day. We have a PDF and a how-to video that you can just push play on and really get some great relief.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I believe we're also going to have an offer for anyone that is interested in any of your other programs or services.
Sure. So that is our freebie, and we offer a couple of different programs. We have a curated resource for all things that moms need to holistically heal from home, and it's called Healing from Home. For post-birth, we have a lot of women, holistically minded women who are prepping for birth, that often purchase that in their last trimester, so that when things happen, they know what to ask at their 6-week follow-up. They have a list of resources ready to roll in the event that they are dealing with hemorrhoids or tearing, or how to properly care for their C-section scar. All of those things are in our Healing from Home resource. And then for women who are currently might be dealing with things like issues of pressure, pee leaks, bowel issues, all of those things, we offer our signature program. And that is based off of the research that we published in the Journal of Women's Health Physical Therapy, where you get to do this 10-minute-a-day routine from the comfort of your own home on your own schedule, without having to do Kegels or insert any devices. So lots of women really like to have that option. And we are offering a $50 coupon for your listeners, and the code is MWA for Mama Wears Athleisure. That's all caps. And that coupon is good for any of our offerings.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking your time. I know you're so busy, but having this information is super, super useful. Doesn't really matter what stage in that breastfeeding journey you are, right? So
that's correct. It's never too late to make a positive change.
Well, thank you again.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next week for our next episode. You can find us on Instagram for more updates and tips. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and give us a review if you like us.